going on, guys? Welcome back to Evil Intoxicated, episode number 54. After a wild weekend, I'm returning back from Martha's Vineyard. Above me is the infamous one, Ted Czech. What's going on, Ted?
Hey, Eddie, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, just getting back from the island.
Oh, yeah, Martha's Vineyard. Wow. How about that? Did you go to Vineyard Vines? Apparently, my kids love this Vineyard Vines. I guess it's like a clothing line. What's that?
It's like a polo, kind of.
Yeah. I'm not too. I mean, I know it because they know about it, but they love it. And when I was up in New England, we didn't go to the Vineyard. We were in Connecticut, and we were in Rhode Island. So we went to the at Foxwoods. So anyway, yeah. How was it?
It was awesome, man. I mean, it rained the last couple of days, but honestly, the whole time I was there, all I could think about was McGregor and what we're going to talk about on tonight's show. Of course, Twitter has blown up. We've seen so many UFC stars, boxing stars have mixed opinions about it. So I want to get everyone's take on what they really thought. Ted, I want to get your take on what you thought. And to start this thing off, me and you were wrong. Me and you last week on Evil Intoxicated, episode number 54, said to our audience we'd be more shocked if Mayweather won by TKO than if Conor would win by decision. And look what happens. Mayweather goes in there. He did lose the first couple of rounds, which I think are surprising. We'll get into that in a second. But end of the day,
right,
me and you were wrong. Mayweather got his first knockout in like 13 years.
Yeah, I guess in boxing, if they stop it on the feet, it's considered a knockout. See, you and I are familiar with more familiar with MMA, where if the ref steps in like this and goes like this, that's a TKO ref stoppage.
Yeah.
Like the most recent example I can think of is Ronda Rousey and Amanda Nunes. Ronda took a tremendous. She didn't hit the canvas. She was still on her feet. Looked like she was about to fall, but she didn't. And the ref stepped in and said that's it. So that's a TKO ref stoppage. But in boxing, what you saw there is considered a full-on knockout. It's kind of weird. But I thought that.
So first off, before we even saw the boxing fight, the boxing match, did you think Conor looked a little nervous compared to what we're used to seeing him, walk out, feel that energy, and then he steps in the ring, turns circles, kisses the crowd, and then does, the Vince McMahon rubber arm? I mean, we didn't see a confident Conor McGregor, in my opinion. Even just seeing him backstage, it felt so weird. It didn't really click in until we saw Conor getting his gloves on. It kind of seemed like Conor, for the first time, was taken back in a way. Did you pick up that same kind of emotion, or what did you think before he stepped into that ring?
He was very calm. I guess is the way I would put it. When can't remember who it was, but somebody was back there interviewing him, and he was chewing some gum, and he said, "No, I'm just really calm right before a fight." We can look back on it now and say, "Oh, maybe he was nervous," but I mean, who cares about nerves? I mean, the guy won the first 4 rounds, in my opinion. And so I guess he calmed himself down.
And you know what, Ted? The boxing community was like, Floyd allowed him to win those first couple rounds, but when was the last time Floyd lost 3 straight rounds?
Very good point. I think one thing is that, fans of MMA, we don't understand losing a round on purpose, because that's just not in the MMA playbook. You don't want to lose any round, because you don't want to leave it in the hands of the judges, as Dana White says. So you want to win every single round. I mean, there are less rounds in MMA than there are in boxing, first of all. So you don't want to leave anything to chance. You want to beat the hell out of the guy in every single round, so that you leave nothing to chance. And the judges have really nothing but to choose you as the winner. See? But I guess there is a philosophy in boxing where, okay, I'm going to lose the first several, but I'm going to come back and win. Well, why would you want to bank on something like that? That's just and an MMA fan's been insane. But apparently some people think that was Mayweather's strategy, you know. And I guess it worked. I mean, you know, we saw McGregor tire. He gassed out. And, you know, a 29-year-old McGregor, his cardio is just not, you know, up to a 40-year-old Mayweather. I mean, Mayweather's been doing 12-rounders for how many years? And Conor has never done a 12-rounder in actuality. I mean, he did 12-rounders in practice, but he never actually did one for the real thing until then. And well, it was a 10-rounder.
Well, the odds obviously went down to 3-1 in Mayweather's favor, but it made sense where the odds were originally, because this is a guy going in with an 0-0 record, you know, hasn't had a professional boxing record. Obviously, he's 0-0, and on top of it all, he's fighting one of the best of our generation in boxing. Going in there, I think he did pretty well, but the boxing community is saying that, you know, Mayweather starched him. I didn't think Conor got starched, but at the same time, I think both the guys came out as winners because we got to see exactly what we wanted. We didn't really think Conor was going to actually win. I mean, maybe some of us were drinking the Kool-Aid at the end. But
I think he's going to win. I picked him to win.
I picked him to win, too. Don't get me wrong. I picked him to win, too. But in reality, I mean, it was a long shot. It was a long shot for Conor to win.
It was. I said if it goes the distance, Floyd would definitely win. Conor's best chances were in those first few rounds. But it just seemed to me like he was either afraid to throw, you know, an absolute bomb, thinking that Floyd was going to capitalize on it. He was either afraid to throw an absolute bomb, or he hadn't learned how to harness that power in boxing, because it, you know, throwing with power in MMA is different than throwing in boxing. You know, different stances and everything. So I don't know. I can't see inside his head. So I don't know which it is. You know, but something was preventing him from really throwing some haymakers. I mean, he had him with that nice uppercut.
Yeah.
That was really sweet. But other than that, it was kind of you know, a fair amount of pitter patter. You know, but you know, you want to judge it on that. He landed more than Mayweather in the first four.
And let's not forget Max Kellerman saying that, you know, Conor wouldn't land one single punch, let alone win the first couple of rounds.
I hate that guy. I hate Kellerman. He sucks.
You know, I got to ask you this as well, Ted. Since we were, you know, stepping outside, we were watching some boxing fights. Did it make you miss MMA? As it really made me appreciate the sport of MMA even more than I already do.
Oh, absolutely. That I think I said that. I can't remember who I was saying this to, but now we can get back to it. You know what I mean? We had, it was in, what was it, the last 3 or 3.5 weeks leading up to this. We didn't have any UFC.
Yeah.
And so, okay, it was fine. The build-up, I enjoyed the build-up and the hype to this fight. But now that it's over, I'm ready to move on. Let's get back to MMA and the sport that we truly love. You know? Hey, just looking here quick at the chat room. I am so damn black says brought 10 rounds with Floyd, made one of the greatest, maybe one of the greatest of all time. Motherfucker did real good. So yeah, I mean, heck yeah, he didn't go to the 12th, but he got to, you know, 10.5 or whatever, or halfway through the 10th round, you know, and won the first 4. And then Dark Cloud Entertainment saying some of those body shots Conor threw was fucking Floyd up. And then EC is saying tough 26. See, we got that to look forward to. Tough 26. Eddie Alvarez and Justin Gaethje. You know, even though despite Eddie losing his title to Conor, Eddie is still, you know, a viable threat in the UFC lightweight division. And so he's taking on Gaethje, the invader from who took out the number 5 guy in Michael Johnson.
Yeah, that's going to be an exciting season. And just a shout out, I'm going to be having season 23 winner Tatiana Suarez on my show Thursday, so we can look forward to that. Of course, I'll be talking with her about Tough 26. So, you know, since you're scratching that section of this topic, bringing up Eddie Alvarez, the question on everyone's mind is what's next for Conor? I mean, really, this was the mother load. I mean, this is really as big as it was really going to get for Conor. I don't know why they only did like this really on short notice, 3 months to build up this fight, one of the biggest fights of Conor's career, in my opinion. Why did they only do 3 months instead of doing 7 months or 8 months? So now it's like, all right, now that's over, thank God. But what's next? Ted, I'm going to start with you. What's next here?
Well, yeah, I mean, we mentioned Alvarez and Gaethje on The Ultimate Fighter, but we also have heard that there is an interim lightweight title bout that's been signed between Ferguson and not but Kevin Lee. That's the fight that's been signed. When is that? Is that 215 or 216, somewhere around there? I forget what event that is, but it's coming up soon. So they've already squared off once, and prior to that they had some words on, was it Fox Sports 1 or something like that? They were yapping back and forth at each other. So that's for the interim title. But meanwhile, Conor has said at some point he told Dana White, because somebody asked Dana White about this, what's next, the question that you're asking, and Dana said, well, Conor wants Khabib in Russia. Well, we've also heard about the trilogy with Nate Diaz. So, and Conor, I was just reading today, you probably read this too, that Conor said, yeah, I want to fight Nate for the third time, but it's going to be at 155. What do you think of that?
I like that. That makes sense. And that's honestly the next big thing for Conor. I mean, I tweeted out this week, do you guys want to see Khabib Nurmagomedov? There's a risk involved with that. But at the same time, what I like about Conor McGregor fights is when you really don't think he has a shot and somehow he pulls it off, whether it was against Dustin the Diamond, whether it was against, Eddie Alvarez, even the RDA. That fight didn't go through, but I was like, how is he going to get past RDA? I like thinking that Conor doesn't have a chance and somehow he goes in there and proves everybody wrong. So with that on the back burner, it's just too risky. I don't think they're going to do Khabib. Will they have Khabib fight one more time to kind of boost his star power? If they have it in Russia, you don't really need to do that at the same time. But will they risk having a world tour with Khabib? Conor even said it. Khabib drops out. Why risk it?
He's another pullout merchant. As who was the first person he said that to? You're a pullout merchant. Oh, Aldo.
Aldo
said Aldo was a pullout merchant.
Honestly, you got to go Nate Diaz, right? You got to go Nate Diaz trilogy. That's the next big pay-per-view. That's where the money is.
Right. That's gonna pull the biggest numbers. I agree with you for sure. Yep. Over 1 million. Definitely over 1 million. 1.5 million. Speaking of which, I guess it was Uriah Faber was saying 6.5 million pay-per-view buys for this one for MayMac. And then there was another estimation that nearly 3 million were pirate. In addition to that 6.5, there was another like 2.9 or 3 that were pirated.
Yeah, I heard 100 million illegal streams.
100 million.
100 million illegal streams is what I heard. From Ariel. Wow. Ariel said it.
100 million. Woo. Jeez. But so 6.5. I thought it was going to be 5 because the record was 4.6 with Mayweather Pacquiao. So I said, well, they're definitely going to do 5. Or I was predicting 5. 6.5. 6.5 million. So pay-per-view buys.
Now do we see like a kink in his armor? Because it was questionable. Is Conor McGregor going to be able to last in there? And that was the big question in a couple of his fights, especially when he was going up against Nate Diaz for the second time. And Mayweather was even saying, this man has given up. I was at the press conference in New York where Mayweather, he just kept saying, you've given up time and time again. So now that we know the outcome of this fight, it did seem like Mayweather was taking on the oncoming storm like we've seen in the past with the Rumble Johnson. DC taking on the oncoming storm in the first round, or Vitor Belfort. The first round you got to watch out for, but then after that he might gas. Did we see a kink in the armor, or do we really not really expect that? Is he going to be better when he returns to the octagon, Conor McGregor?
Yeah, I mean, MMA and boxing, as you know, Eddie, two totally different animals.
Yeah.
I think I think Conor is probably, I don't know, but he's probably eager to get back to MMA.
Oh, I bet.
He's I've had the shits of this boxing crap. Let me get back to everything: kicks, knees, elbows, takedowns, submissions, the whole the whole kit and caboodle, everything that encompasses MMA. You know, I'm tired of working in this tight little hallway.
Using 2 weapons when I'm used to using 8 or 9. Yeah.
Right. So he's probably eager to. I would hope he is. And I think this just boosts his confidence, if anything, because he hung in there with Floyd for so long, and his star power grew. In Japan, they have this concept called fighting spirit, which is as long as you give it your all, you give 100, the crowd loves you, even in defeat. There's no shame whatsoever in defeat. You are what you have in there. You leave it all on the canvas. Fighting spirit. That's a concept that's in Japan. Here over in the South, you're a loser. You came in second. You suck. You lost. You got knocked out. You got submitted. Whatever. That doesn't exist in Japan, and I like that philosophy. I really do. And anyway, so I think it's just going to boost him up, because he's going to see, oh damn, I've got more fans now, and Dana White was proud of him, right? So he's got the boss's blessing.
Well,
what do you think?
This fight was so big. I was actually asked to come on iHeartRadio this past Monday morning, iHeartRadio 960 WELI on the Vinny Penn Project, and they were asking me, they're like, what do you want to see Conor do next? And of course, I told them the same thing I just told our audience here. I want to see him step back in the octagon. I'm tired of this. I'm happy that MayMac is over. They disagreed, though. They liked what they saw, Conor McGregor. They're more used to boxing, I guess. They're not so familiar with the MMA world.
They're boxing fans.
Yeah.
So they want to see Conor fight in the ring again?
And what do you do? Do you have him fight Paulie? I don't want to see that fight. I don't want to see that fight at all. Do you want to see him fight Canelo? I don't want to see that. I want to see Conor go back to the octagon. That's where he belongs. That's where you're going to see the best Conor McGregor, and he's in his prime right now. Why pass that up? Exactly.
He has a title, and there's so many people that have been clamoring for him to defend something. He had 2 titles in Cage Warriors, and he's had 2 titles in the UFC. Hasn't defended any of them. So it's time now for him to defend, and he's saying, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to defend this freaking title against Nate Diaz. It just needs to be at the weight that the belt is at 155. I mean, it makes perfect sense, and also he said, hey, look, I fought him at 170. I lost. I rematched him at the same weight, and I won. So that's taken care of. And here we go. We want to do one more. We want the rubber match, but I am the champ, so he should come to fight me at 155. And also, Nate spent most of his career at 155, so it just makes perfect sense. But you know what Nate's going to do? Nate's going to cry about it a little bit, and he's going to cry in the sense that he's going to try to squeeze the UFC for more money, which who can blame him? I mean, that's all part of the negotiation. So I'm not blaming him for that. I'm just saying, being real here, that's what he's going to do, and fine, good for him.
And it was smart for Nate. I mean, let's face it. It's been a year since UFC 202 fight Conor versus Nate 2. Nate refused to take any other fight in the meantime. Looking back now, that was a smart thing to do, because now Conor has even more star power than he had this time last year, without a doubt. Crossing over to the boxing world, you're getting some boxing guys that maybe weren't familiar with the UFC, seeing Conor McGregor go in there, even though he didn't win. At the same time, it's piquing interest. They want to see what Conor can do, especially in his own element. So Conor McGregor, without a doubt, has more star power. But here's the question, Ted. If he goes in there, fights Nate Diaz, and loses, then what? Now we got Conor McGregor losing twice in a row. I mean,
only on. I mean, twice in a row boxing and MMA. But I mean, in MMA it would only be one. But then we just have to continue the rivalry. An immediate rematch, or because he could argue, well, I beat Nate, then or he beat me, then I beat him, then he beat me. So I mean. it could either be an immediate rematch or, you know, that Conor would have to fight one more time. I don't know. I'm not thinking that way. I think, and I Am So Damn Black says he's not beating Nate again. And I you know, respectfully disagree. I say, nah, it's going to be, you know, second verse, same as the first. More leg kicks. He's going to chop Nate down, and he's going to use that strategy. That was the strategy that he used in the second fight that he didn't in the first. You know, a lot of leg kicks. But he also knocked Nate down, what, 3 times, I think?
Yeah.
In that fight?
Yep, 3-4 times.
Yeah.
There's still people out there
you know,
that think Nate won the second fight, too.
Yep. You're kidding me.
Without a doubt, there's people out there that still think Nate won the second fight even Nate thinks so.
Well, well, Nate, yeah. He's pedaling on that big river. It's called denial.
So, Ted, getting back to the fight itself, were you surprised how much the referee let Conor get away with the rabbit punches, the hammer fist, taking the back of Mayweather? Was Mayweather luring him into it? I mean, Mayweather kind of seemed like he was turning his back, you know, in the later rounds. What was your take on that? Were you surprised he didn't get a point taken?
There was some, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it is in. It seems like, I mean, that's really, whether it's boxing or MMA, it's left up to the discretion of the ref, and it's possible that the ref was letting it go just a little bit because it was Conor's first boxing match. And oh, did you notice? All right, let me say this. Did you notice when they brought the two of them together before the fight started, and the referee saying, "I want a clean fight," you know, went over the rules, and he's looking directly at Conor the entire time. You know, I'm gonna, you know, where I want a clean fight. None of this. He might have even said no elbows, no, right?
Yep.
And he looked at Conor the entire time. He did not look at Floyd one time. He looked at Conor the entire time for that initial warning right before the fight started. I noticed that. I was like, wow, that's pretty biased. But maybe with good reason, because we saw Conor kind of revert to things that because, you know, in MMA we've got the mohawk strip that goes down the head, right? That's the part that you can't hit. So you can hit behind the ear in MMA, which I don't believe you can in boxing. So I think, you know, the ref was maybe taking it easy on Conor with those fouls, but at the same time may have, on the flip side, may have stopped the fight at a point that some people thought was too soon, also because it was Conor's first boxing match, you know. But that stoppage didn't really surprise me, because boxing referees do seem to stop fights earlier than MMA refs do, right? Don't you think?
Well, that's another question. Do you think that, like Conor was saying, should have let him get knocked down, or were they protecting him?
See, I don't know. I maybe it's just me being a fan. I didn't want to see Conor on the canvas.
Me neither.
I mean, that would have been splashed all over everywhere. You know, I don't know. I guess I would take it personally, and it would be an embarrassment. You know, yeah. to have our guy, you know, sprawled out on the canvas. So I'm glad he didn't hit the ground.
There's a great picture, Ted, of Conor after the fight going backstage with D. Devlin and his son Conor Jr. Conor Jr.'s looking the other way. Conor's in the back, you know, smiling or whatever, and there's a little quote above it. He's like, "I tried, son," and the son's looking the other way. "You did fucking nothing."
That's great. That is. I haven't seen that one. That's good.
So funny. I'll post that up on our Facebook page for everybody at Evil and Intoxicated on Facebook.
Yeah.
Ted, what about the way that?
All right. Yeah, please do. Go ahead. Oh, you kind of stuck there, Eddie. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What did you think about the way that, you know, the UFC guys and the boxing guys were reacting to this fight? What did you see in the reactions afterwards from, you know, some of the bigger stars? Because I saw Jose Aldo putting out the laughing emojis. Max Holloway was congratulating. What did you see?
Right. Jose Aldo is he's become unhinged. Really has. He is. He's just. I don't know how else to say it, but the guy needs some counseling or something. You know, some I don't know, some medication. Because, first of all, he's in total denial. He's delusional about Conor beating him, saying he slipped on a skateboard or something like that. And the Conor has soap hands. You know, and then proceeds to, you know, to talk shit on Conor for this fight, when there's no possible way he could. I don't believe that he could have done any better than Conor. I mean, he lost in. It's like Paulie Malignaggi can't grasp that Conor knocked him down in sparring. Jose Aldo still, however many years it's been, 2 years now or more, he can't grasp that he lost in 13 seconds by knockout to Conor McGregor. He can't grasp it. He can't fathom it. And then there was that. Well, so that's one thing. Then there was that confrontation between Brendan Schaub and Nate Diaz.
Yes, backstage.
Hey, that was a really weird thing, because Schaub, who I don't always agree with, was in support of Conor, and then Nate was saying Conor, I guess, didn't do anything, and you know, Schaub's like, yeah, but well, did you see the first few rounds or whatever, something like this, and then Nate said something else, and then Schaub said, yeah, but he beat the crap out of you in the second fight.
That's actually false.
Something like that,
he didn't say that, though, Ted. That's actually false. That internet site actually wrote those quotes, and that's not what was actually said.
Oh, okay. I thought that was just somebody writing subtitles. Because I did hear Nate call him a bitch, right?
Yeah, he calls him a bitch.
F you and bitch.
Yeah, laughs. He was like, look at your career.
Correct, but part's not correct.
Nate calling Brendan a bitch is correct, but Brendan never said that Conor, what did he say? Conor rallied you or something like that?
Oh, okay. So part of it's fake and part of it's true.
Yeah. Well, this is allegedly what happened. Brendan Schaub saw Nate. He was like, well, here's another guy from the UFC. You know, there's not many UFC guys. Let me go say what's up, see what he thought about this fight. Goes up to him and was like, hey, man, what about Conor? I mean, he won the first 3 rounds. And Nate was like, you don't know anything about boxing. Nate was like, you don't know anything about boxing. Floyd let him win those rounds.
Ah, that whole thing. Okay.
Yeah. And then Brendan was like, man, use your words. And then after that is when Nate really went off. And it was like, you're a bitch. Look at your career, blah, blah, blah. And then Brandon was like, I don't have a problem with you, and walks away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, that's good for Schaub that he didn't, you know, pursue it any further, you know, because sometimes it does seem like the Diaz brothers are just looking to beef with anybody.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of on a hair, you know. I mean, I know that's their thing, right? That's kind of their shtick, but also it is real, I think. And you know, that at any moment it can turn into you know, fuck you, bitch. You know what I mean? Like it just like they got it ready. It's like this. They got it cocked, and they just boom, they're ready to throw that. Fuck you, bitch. You know what I mean? They're just ready. It's kind of funny, but I don't know. So yeah, I mean, there were. It seemed like there were some guys that were in support of Conor, and then some like Aldo and Nate that were salty about it.
You know,
okay, so we're seeing a trend. It's those who have lost to Conor.
Well, no, actually. Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, Eddie Alvarez congratulated Notorious. Max congratulated him, but Aldo was like, no way. Nate, no way. But at the same time, it's like, Nate, why aren't you pumping that fight up? Why aren't you saying Conor did do good? I mean, you're probably going to be fighting him next. Was that a good idea of him to downplay Conor or not, marketing wise?
Well, maybe it just continues their rivalry. You know what I mean? It just
that's true.
You know, and that's like, it's like more fodder for the next. It's more hype, you know. Then Conor can say, "Oh, so you think I did shitty against Floyd? Oh yeah, well, you know, just perpetuates the rivalry between the two of them, I think."
So here's one thing that really rubbed me the wrong way. We're going to be moving on in a minute here, but of course it's such a big deal. We spent a lot of time concentrating on MayMac. I'm happy it's over, but at the same time, I got to ask you this. You know, rub me the wrong way. Paulie Malignaggi, and we've heard enough about Paulie Malignaggi at this point, but there was a tweet that went out of him and Floyd next to each other, and Paulie pretty much is like suckers, saying that maybe he gave Floyd some inside information. Do you think Paulie would do that? Because it did seem that way. There was a tweet where him and Mayweather are sitting next to each other, and he pretty much is hinting towards that.
I mean, he could have, could have said a few things to Floyd. I guess it wouldn't surprise me. Although then there were others that speculated, well, that's just the narrative. That's just the storyline that somebody has created. Is that okay? You got Paulie who trained with McGregor briefly, and then he's a double agent. He goes over and
he's a double agent.
He's a double agent, and then he rats on Conor to Floyd. It's only in Hollywood. You know what I mean? It's a movie right there. So, I mean, clearly Malignaggi was in the same room, or was in Floyd's company after he left. At some point after he left Conor's camp. So you got to figure there's no way he couldn't have. He had to have told him something, but did it really help Floyd, or would Floyd? I don't know that it was anything, so pivotal that it turned the tide of the fight. I think Floyd was gonna. He probably went in there saying, you know what, I'm just gonna try to figure out what he's doing, and however long it takes me to figure that out. But meanwhile, he lost those rounds. So I don't know if there was anything great that Paulie.
Here's another thing, Ted. Conor McGregor landed more shots than Manny Pacquiao did in the Mayweather fight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember being impressed with that with Mayweather Pacquiao, and it takes two to tango. So it's regarded as a boring fight when people look back on it. They're like that. Yeah, I mean, and we all know the story. It happened 5 years too late. Mayweather dragged it out with accusations of steroids and this and that. Probably thinking that meanwhile, I mean, yeah, he was getting older, but so was Pacquiao. I don't know. I don't know what the idea was, but yeah, that's regarded as a boring ass fight. So and Conor, Conor was letting the hands fly. They just weren't flying with too much in the way of power.
And here's the other thing. At the end of the fight, Conor McGregor was like, I turned you into a Mexican tonight. A lot of people were taking that the wrong way. He was pretty much saying, I made you push forward, made you an exciting fighter tonight, which I was happy to see. I was happy to see Floyd shocked a lot of people. He wasn't being the evasive fighter. He was keeping his word, moving forward, and putting on a great fight. I'm happy that we saw that.
Right. I mean, it's I don't know if I want to say it's a stereotype, but I mean, characteristically speaking, Mexican fighters are aggressive fighters. I mean, that is a well-known fact, if you will, within the boxing community. That's the way that Mexican fighters fight.
No
so
mas.
that's what Conor was saying. What's that?
No mas. Alberto Duran.
Yeah, I mean, that Conor didn't mean anything derogatory by that. He was just saying that Floyd was showing a side that he hadn't shown before, and it was because of Conor that he did. So it was though he was resembling a Mexican fighter, something which is uncharacteristic of Floyd. It's not the way he fights. He's known as the world's best defensive fighter, not an offensive fighter.
One more thing, Ted, that we have to talk about. I had no issue with my stream, but apparently there was a lot of people out there that ordered the pay-per-view fight, whether it was on UFC Fight Pass or Showtime or however they ordered it, and had some glitches in it. How was your stream, first off? Mine was slippery smooth, silky smooth.
I was at somebody's house, and there were only a couple of times when it kind of stopped or stuttered. But I mean, I saw people were tweeting out or were on the message boards were showing just a black screen. Like, look at this. I'm on UFC, a Fight Pass, and it's a black screen, and they're saying that they can't handle the volume of people that ordered it. So I read today two different things. One, there's a possibility of a class action lawsuit because of that. But maybe in reaction to that, the UFC is offering, they're going to pay people back. They're going to reimburse people for that, screw up. By the way, Pat Back is on, and he's saying every time I see Floyd, I get triggered. And then he said Floyd will never be the best ever. See, Floyd's so concerned about getting 50-0 because it beats Rocky Marciano's record. So on paper, one could argue that Floyd is the best ever, but it's I don't know. I mean, yeah, he's got that, but what does he have beyond that? I mean, there's all this about that for years Floyd has handpicked his opponents and also done all this defensive fighting and running and not being very offensive, not being a true fighter. So there's that knock against him. You know what I mean? So maybe you could argue, well, Tyson was better or Muhammad Ali was better, because they were actual fighters and they took losses, but that's what a fighter does.
And that's the thing about Tyson. When he did get that loss, that huge upset, he was going through a hard time. He lost his boxing coach, which is also his father figure in a way. He was going through a hard time, and we remember what happened after all that. I remember, because my father was a big fan. But every time he stepped in there, he put on an exciting fight. Mayweather, on the other hand, people say the opposite, but this was the cherry on top. Ted, he gets $100 million plus some. He gets the 50-0 record, and against a guy from the UFC, even though it's an 0-0 record, it was a fight that everybody was talking about.
Oh, sorry. I am so damn black and saying, bitch, you sound like an alien. You better not be calling me a bitch. No, before he was saying I sound weird. Do I sound weird to you, or are we having some technical problems?
Yeah,
already?
there was a little bit of technical things, but it's smooth. It's smooth now.
I think he meant bitch in like a nice way, like in a fraternal way. He's calling me a bitch. I'm gonna go with that. That's what I'm going with.
Ted versus You Are So Black, and pay-per-view. Let's see it.
Thanks
for
for
tuning in, guys.
We'll break the pay-per-view record.
Yeah, we'll break the pay-per-view.
We'll go for 7 milli.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. If it's your first time tuning in to Evil Intoxicated, me and Ted do this every Wednesday night here on YouTube on Ted's channel. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I definitely recommend you guys tune in. Do this 10 p.m. Eastern time. I thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you're following me and Ted on Twitter at evil_echo. That's EVIL_ECCO. You follow Ted Czech at Ted Czech. That's TEDCZECH. And now we got the Facebook page up. So you don't even have to go to YouTube after the live show. It's up on the Facebook page. Everyone has Facebook. Your mom has Facebook. Your ice cream man has Facebook. Your banker has Facebook. Your dog probably has Facebook. I wouldn't be surprised at this point.
The dog's doo-doo's got Facebook.
So, Ted, getting towards the end of this whole MayMac thing, what do you rate it? It's all said and done. Well, here's one more question. Looking back,
all right.
There was talks about Anderson Silva possibly doing a boxing match on this card. Stipe versus whoever. Would you wish that happened, or are you happy it was just Mayweather McGregor? Because it does seem like the prelims and even the main card, even though there were a couple finishes, lackluster. It wasn't really much going on. If you had the UFC guys in there against boxing guys, could it have been a little bit better on your hand, or are you happy with what you witnessed?
Well, I guess initially I was like, oh yeah, Stipe Miocic versus who was it that wanted to fight him? Anthony Joshua, I think, who was a heavyweight champ, or was it the other guy, Deontay Wilder, maybe? Right, and yeah, then Anderson Silva, we could have put him against Roy Jones Jr. He's wanted to fight Roy Jones Jr. for friggin' a decade, for God's sake, right? Who else then? David Hay, the British boxer, and Jimmy Manua, of course, UFC fighter. They wanted to fight, I think it was.
I'm surprised they didn't even have Diaz on there. Diaz is a great boxer.
Oh, speaking of which, did you see Tyron Woodley tweeting out? He goes, "There's only 5 UFC fighters that can hold it down in boxing." And he goes, Nick Diaz, Cody Garbrandt. Oh shit, who is it? One other guy, and yours truly. And people were like, "Really, Woodley? You? Are you kidding me?" Yeah, you didn't see that one? It was Nick Diaz, Nate Diaz, Cody Garbrandt. Oh shit! Now I can't think of the 4th guy. It wasn't Connor. He didn't name Connor. And then he goes, "And yours truly."
Now, that makes sense though. It makes not the Woodley part, but the Diaz brothers. That makes perfect sense. Like I was just saying.
Right.
And No Love has a background in boxing.
Right. I can't think of the other guy. Shit. But yeah, so he was trying to pump himself up and say that he could hang in the pro boxing in the ring, you know, as a pro. Anyway, yeah. So Eddie, you were asking me.
Would you wish you saw, you know, UFC guys in this event, or are you happy with what you witnessed?
I mean, no, I was excited for that. I thought maybe it was going to happen, but it just seemed like you know, Showtime, you know, took over, and the UFC kind of just bowed out. Like the UFC's like, okay, you know, we're just along for the ride. You guys have all of the control. They relinquished all the control. Showtime, instead of kind of fighting and saying, no, we want other people on this card too, you know. But I don't know. So I guess it didn't matter. I guess they just said, you know, screw it. It doesn't matter. I mean, no way. Until the main event. You know what I mean? Did you notice all the empty seats?
Yeah. Yep. You know, one more thing, Ted. On the same subject, will we see a crossover again sometime soon between MMA and boxing? Whether it's somebody in boxing coming over to MMA, whether it's Paulie Malignaggi or whoever. Are we going to see something like that soon, or are we giving this a rest for a little while here?
Well, we've got Gokhan Saki, who's a kickboxer.
Yes, he was coming over.
He won and Glory. And what do they call him? They call him like the Turkish Tyson or something like that. He's got a nickname, but I mean he's a short, wide dude. But I guess he's dropping down from heavyweight to light heavyweight. He's making his debut in the UFC in Japan coming up. So there's that. But he's a kickboxer, he's not a pure boxer. But we do have Andre Berto, who is somewhat of a well-known. I guess he's a former or current champion or something. He's a fairly well-known, successful. He wants into the UFC. I don't know much about this guy. You know, where he's from, or I mean, but he's a boxer. But he wants to pull a James Toney. Okay, let's get him a wrestler. Let's get him a submission guy, and we'll choke it out of him quick and give him the boot. Then okay, fine.
So are we done with this? Are we done with this whole boxing thing, or would you want to see like an Andre Berto crossing over?
You know, just like I said, only if we can choke, you know, throw him up against somebody who's a submission, you know, a ground specialist, just to choke him out, just to let him know he made the wrong decision and you know, and send him back.
I mean, I think it was 7 years ago this week where we had James Toney versus Captain America.
Right. So would you be interested in that or not?
Why not? At this point, it seems like title fights aren't exciting people enough. It seems like people want somewhat of circus fights. I mean, do we want to see the fights? We don't want to admit it. I'll say that. We don't want to admit it, but we'll tune in.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, man.
All right, so I think that wraps this up. One last thing. What do you rate this card, Ted? And we want to know what you guys out there think, whether listening to the podcast or watching live or YouTube, Facebook, wherever. Let us know what you guys rate this. Out of 5 stars, what are you rating this? In a whole, I give it 3. In the main event, I'm giving it 5 for 5. We got to see everything we wanted to see. We saw Conor have his moments. We saw Floyd have his moments. And both guys walk away winners, in my opinion. 5 out of 5.
I would agree there, Eddie. I'll give it 5 out of 5 as well. Yep. It just doesn't sound like it at this point. You'd think that the interim title, is the I guess in the WWE they got this thing called Money in the Bank. You got that briefcase and you can cash it in at any time you want. It's like an immediate title shot. You'd think that that being the interim champ means that when the regular or true or whatever the steady champ, when he comes back, you get the shot because you've got to unify the titles. Not so with Conor. He's apparently running the table to some degree. He gets to call his shots a little bit more than anybody else, and he's saying, like we said, we've heard he wanted Khabib, and he wanted to fight him in Russia, where Khabib is obviously huge because he's from Dagestan, which is a republic, used to be in the Soviet Union, so it's a Russian republic, I guess you could say, right? So he either wants that or he wants Nate Diaz for the trilogy, but he wants Nate at 155 where he holds the title. So yeah, apparently that's what Conor's looking at, and I just hope we get to see it. I just hope we get to see Conor. I think you said this too, Eddie, that you just want to see Conor fight by year's end. Too risky, yeah. I guess in terms of he can't lay off the tiramisu, and I guess he still has some. Yeah, your microphone.
Yeah, I just fixed it, Ted. I just fixed it. Yeah,
right,
like I just said, it's too risky to put Khabib in there, and we're only going to see one fight here, Ted. Only one fight that's big enough for them to book is Nate Diaz in the trilogy fight. That's what they're doing. No matter who wins this fight against Kevin Lee versus Tony Ferguson, they're going to bypass them because we've seen it happen before. Is it right? No. But money talks, and money is Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor 3.
Right. I mean, if the Fertitta brothers still own the UFC, we might not see that. We might see the winner of Tony versus Lee. But WME IMG, as we've said before, this is a different animal here. They've got to make back a whole bunch of money. They spent $4.2 billion on UFC, on buying the UFC. So they need to put on the biggest fights possible. And so yeah, we're going to see all these money fights. I mean, Conor was the one who brought this whole concept to the UFC. These money fights, the red panty. Yeah, and I would agree with you that's what we're going to see. And Nate, like I said, is going to try to squeeze the UFC, and Conor is too. And more power to him, because that's what you got to do. You got to, you're a fighter. You got to know your worth and make as much as you possibly can in as short a time as possible.
All right, Ted. Well, we got about 8 minutes left here before we end today's show, and there are fights coming up this weekend. Now, before you guys get too excited, I know it's been a little lull. It's been 3 weeks since we've had our last UFC event, which was a fun event, let's not forget. But there's a twist. It's not on FS1. It's not a pay-per-view fight, so you're not going to have to pay for it. But you kind of do, because you need to watch it on, and it's only on UFC Fight Pass.
Fight Pass.
And it's also earlier in the day over here in America because it's over in Rotterdam.
Rotterdam in the Netherlands, yeah.
Ted, who's fighting here? Who's fighting? Who's on the main card here?
All right, well, let's see. I just happen to have it here. Okay, so the main event is Stefan Struve versus the skyscraper, Stefan Struve versus Alexander Volkov, who is a former, I believe he's a former M1 champion. And was he Bellator? Yeah, he was the Bellator champ too. He was a Bellator heavyweight champion, I believe. Yes, he was.
Bellator does not have a heavyweight champion anymore.
Right, because they haven't had one since they stripped Volkov of the title 3 years ago. And so Volkov, they stripped him of the title, and he went on and he actually fought a couple more times in Bellator and lost, and then went to M1, and then he's had his last 2 fights in the UFC, and those have been wins, both decisions.
And if there's anyone out there that's not familiar with Stefan Struve, this is a guy who's knocked out our current champion, Stipe. He's knocked him out cold. He had a 11-second KO win over Bigfoot. I mean, might not excite too many people that are familiar with Bigfoot, considering he lost like 8 out of his last 9 fights by knockout. But at the same time, Stefan Struve is a monster, depending on what Stefan Struve shows up. That's the big question here. What Stefan Struve is going to show up to this fight?
That's a very good point, Eddie. Yeah, because he's kind of hit or miss. You know what I mean? He's. I remember when he first came into the UFC, and of course, stature, 6'10", or now they're saying they're billing him at an even 7 feet. But what I was impressed with is, okay, he was a kickboxer, but he had submitted guys who were Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. So he's got, I think, double the amount of submission wins to his KOs. So he's won twice as many fights by submission than KO. But he's, like you said, he's hit or miss. Sometimes he's on, sometimes he's not.
Well, you know what? There has to be somewhat of a second win with Stefan Struve here, because right now, like I said, he has a win over the current champion. So with that in sight, if he can get this win, possibly get another win after that, he's right there in title contention, and I'm sure he wants that rematch against Stipe because he's sure as hell confident he can get that win again. And he also knocked Stipe out. He knocked Stipe out.
Oh, that's correct. Absolutely. Yeah, it was a TKO. Since that time, he's had three losses, but he's got 2 wins in the UFC, and in the heavyweight division, which is not a huge, it's a thin division. So yeah, if you win 4 in a row in the UFC heavyweight division, you're doing pretty damn good, we could eventually see that. I mean, if Stipe continues, as champion, and if Struve continues to win, we could see the rematch at some point.
I always pick Struve to win. I want him to win, but I have a feeling he's not in this fight, and that's nothing against Struve.
Really?
Yeah, that's nothing against Struve. I just don't know what Struve is going to show up, and like I said, maybe he has a second win. I don't know, but his opponent is one tough cookie. That's for sure.
Volkov is, but I tend to think, he is throughout most of his career, he's now fighting the best. Alexander Volkov is now fighting the best in the world, and he's got 2 decisions. One of them is split decision, and the other one, I forget what it was, majority or unanimous decision. But I don't know if he can. Struve has got a lot of weapons, and I'm just thinking that Struve is going to catch him in a submission.
Possibly.
Look at him. He's got 17 submission wins.
Brutal.
And then 8 wins by knockout. So I'm seeing a win for Struve here, continuing the streak. So that'll be 3 wins in a row.
I hope so.
We'll see where he goes from there.
I hope so. I'll definitely pick Sale back up if he does get this win. I would love to see Struve get back in there and make a run once again for that title. Will he be able to hold the title? That's another question, but I'm sure as hell I think that he can make another run here. to get to that spot, especially with Stipe at the top. Who else is on this card, Ted, before we close today's show out?
Well, let's see. We have CR Baharzadeh, the Killer. He used to be known as the Killer. I think they told him he couldn't call himself the Killer. But anyway, CR Baharzadeh is fighting Rob Wilkinson. Then we have Marion Renault, who I believe was going to be fighting Jermaine Durandamy, but then she just pulled out.
Got pulled.
Or she did. Did she pull herself out?
JDR, I believe, got pulled. I don't know if she pulled herself out. I'm not sure.
Because if so, then that's the second one, because she was supposed to fight Cyborg and decline that fight.
Yeah.
So Marion Renault is fighting, looks like Talita Bernardo. And then rounding out the main card, Leon Edwards versus Brian Barberena.
Well, there you go. Bam Bam, back at it. The old Bam Bam. Thumbs up.
The guy who beat Sage Northcutt.
Yeah. Yep. And then tried to do a backflip and couldn't.
I forgot about that. So anyway, yeah, there you go. I mean, it's kind of a, it's kind of a lower level card, if you will. Here's one to watch on the prelims. Rustam Khabilov versus Desmond Green.
There you go. I've interviewed Desmond before in the past.
Okay, so he Desmond is on a 5-fight win streak. He's got 20 wins, 5 losses. But this guy Rustam Khabilov is a tough dude as well. 21 wins, 3 losses. He's the guy that if you were in 2012 against Vince Pichel and tossed him, ragdolled him, repeated, just kept suplexing him, suplex after suplex, and after that, and he won. Actually, I think it was the last suplex just kind of bounced him off the back of his head, knocked him out, and he said afterwards, "It's my job to throw him. It's not my business how he lands," or something like that. It was a great quote. I'm probably kind of butchering the quote, but that was the spirit of it. Was, hey, it's my job to throw the guy. How he lands is none of my concern. So I think that's one to watch there. I think that's going to be an exciting fight. But by and large, it seems like it's kind of one of these lower level cards. But as we said before, just because it's a lower level card doesn't mean it can't be big on excitement. You know what I mean? Some of these cards are some of the best ones out there. It's just fighters going at it and showing what they got.
And on top
trying
of
to climb that ladder.
On top of having 3 weeks off of us not watching a UFC event, there's the excitement right there. That's all we need. We're back on schedule.
We'll take anything.
Take that.
Back in the saddle again.
So, Ted, before we close tonight's show out, I just want to give a huge shout out to all of our listeners. We are back at it again, season 2 here on Evil Intoxicated, episode number 55. And what a crazy weekend it was. We survived. We made it through MayMac. I can't believe it. I really can't. But I want to know what you guys think. What is next for Conor McGregor? Let us know on Twitter at evil_echo. That's EVIL_ECCO. And also at Ted Czech. That's at TEDCZECH. And if you guys are on Facebook, we made it so simple. It doesn't get any more simpler than this. At Evil and Intoxicated. That's it. It's so simple. Make sure you're following us also on iTunes at Pure Evil MMA if you're watching this on videocast. If you want to enjoy this on your ride to work, at the gym, wherever you are, you can be tanning. It is getting a little cold out, but if you're tanning, salute. But Ted, happy to be back here another Wednesday night. Historic week. Is this going to be, final question here, is this going to be the fight of the year? Even though it was in boxing, is this the fight of the year, or do you think we have something else in store by December?
Well, yeah. I mean, if we see Conor versus Nate 3, then I mean, depending on what happens in the fight, but that, geez, that's a good question, Eddie. You know what? That's a good question. I don't know if anything can eclipse MayMac, just as far as the exposure, as far as the hype, as far as actually what even the actual fight, what happened. I don't know if anything can eclipse that. But when it comes time at the end of the year to do fight of the year, would that be considered? Because it's not an MMA fight.
Exactly.
It'll be like an asterisk. It'll be an also ran, or it'll be an honorable mention because it's not an MMA. It's not considered an MMA fight. Well, it wasn't. But hopefully we get to see Conor and Nate 3 in December.
So,
I'm really hoping, man.
We have more questions than we got answers on Saturday here. Who's next for Conor? Do we want to see more boxing matches? Let us know what you guys think on Twitter. And Ted, thank you so much for tuning in here once again on Wednesday night. Any closing thoughts here before we end today's show?
Like I said, back to MMA, man. I'm just happy to put this behind us, put this chapter behind us. Let's move forward. Let's focus on our sport, MMA, and move forward from here. And I'm just excited with everything we have. We still have September, October, November, December for this year. You know what I mean? So we got some crazy shit coming up. It's gonna be great.
I am so excited for this weekend's fight, guys. I'm going to be live tweeting, so make sure if you have Twitter, you can live tweet with me. I'm sure Ted will be watching. I'm not sure, but you can always live tweet any time of the day at Ted Czech, and he will definitely get back to you. That's for sure. Ted, another great episode here, number 55, Evil Intoxicated. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Evil Eddie from Pure Evil MMA. That's Ted Czech, the infamous one. We're out.